Video games started in the early 1950s and 60s after computer scientists, as part of some of their experiments, developed simple games and simulation. The first arcade video game appeared in the 70s. After that, history of video games was growing and it became very popular. Video game industry improved drastically from the way it started in the past to the present day, high quality 3D graphics and sound effects. And with the support of the internet, online gaming entered the spotlight, creating networks all around the world. Video games are a great way to have fun, kill time, and communicate and connect with other people through joy, fun, entertainment, and having a common purpose. With the spread of COVID-19 virus, it was declared that the virus is a global health emergency, and in response to that, countries started to close its borders and most people around the world had to stay at home following safety measures of quarantine and social distancing. With that extra time and not so much to do, people started to find ways to entertain themselves. They started reading, cooking, learning new things, and many started to play video games to kill that time. With this turnout for video games, multiple gaming companies made initiatives like Play Apart Together, which was supported by the World Health Organization, encouraging people to stay at home but also stay connected with other people. In the time of the pandemic, some people actually say that playing games makes social distancing more social, and some use it as an escapism from reality as it transfers them mentally to a new world. But are video games enough to get our needs for real human contact and having a reality without the consequences of the virus? From John Baudrillard's explanation and writings about the concept of simulation and simulacrum, we can think of video games as a simulacra that might have the potential to replace reality in the physical world. Baudrillard explained that there are three orders of simulacra through images, which are all different copies of an original that is being signified. The first one is natural imitation or mirror, which is a copy that actually reflects reality as it is, like documentaries and photographs. The second one is the productive copies or maps, based on machines and production like advertisement, for example. The third one, and the most important one, is the simulacra of simulation, and this one is based on information models, cybernetics, and the concept of hyperreality, on the aim of having power and control and creating new realities that hide real. Baudrillard also argues that our understanding of reality is not close to the actual reality because it is constructed from images from our memories, and those images are actually another mimesis of reality because this reality that we know is mediated images. Therefore, images as a simulacra is a copy of a copy of a copy, diminishing the real and hiding it. As we only see the signs as signifier, what is originally being signified disappears in the process of simulation. In that sense, video games are also a copy of a copy of a copy. Therefore, you could think of it as a simulacrum. But how do video games become a simulacrum? It happens through hyperreality, when the distance between the imaginary and the real disappears, and the representation becomes so realistic that we cannot think of it as a representation anymore, but more of an original reality, so replacing reality through the hyperreal. For example, in historical video games like Crusader Kings 2, a strategy game in the time of the Middle Ages that could be played by multiple players, but the narrative of the game does not exactly match the historical one, but the game works as a simulation. The game is copying an imagined original that does not exist. This simulation generates a new reality or hyperreal, which the developer of the game and the gamers are parts of. The game is the copy that depicts something that does not have an original, and this fits with Jerry Banks' definition of simulation, and I quote, "Simulation is the imitation of the operation of a real-world process or system over time. Simulation involves the generation of an artificial history of the system." Another example is an episode from TV show Black Mirror called Playtest, where the lines between real and unreal fades away when a man experiences a new gaming device that builds layers and layers of reality, creating a simulacra and hyperreal. that the man cannot distinguish or know the difference anymore. With the advances of technology, gaming companies nowadays are developing and improving the use of augmented reality, virtual reality, and hyperreality in games, taking video games to the next level, and merging the physical world and the imaginary one, as we can see, feel, and smell. Like the hyperreal is the real, a complete virtual experience. As I said before, video games as a simulacrum have assigned value, which Baudrillard explained as a value that fetishizes people alongside the exchange value, which dominates and governs our life than the real, and the ideology of the sign have a power over society. And the belief that something like virtual world and sign have power over us make it fetishized. In Freud's explanation of fetishism, he described it in his writing as a self-defense mechanism involving the recourse to something that is artificial and overvalued, which is a fetish, in order to hide a lack. Fetish is when an object is exchanged for another one. In video game, the virtual world is fetishized because it denies and exchanges the lack of the physical world. In video games, you can die and come back to life. The human is free from the limitation of reality. Thus, in the time of the pandemic, people can replace shortcoming of real life and inability to do many activities and socialize. In order to function as a fetish, it is not enough for the technology to replace something that is missing. It must deny the lack. This applies to cyberspaces insofar as it operates as a simulacrum that obturates the lack of tangible reality. As a fetish, cyberspaces exclude the shortcoming of the physical world from which the user accesses cyberspaces. Moreover, the fetishism strategy first principle points out how fetishism dehumanizes humans and transforms them into mechanical stereotype representation of actual human beings. And we can see that in video games where people become part of the machine in this virtual augmented world. The thrive using video game as fetishized object to substitute what reality is lacking by having an ideal world of hyperreality instead of reality could be seen as a way of reaching utopia, perfect world, the perfect society where there are no pandemics or diseases. Maybe, although it offers a whole realistic experience during current time for people who have the tool, but it also have a dystopian vision where the human form changes and becomes part of virtual world, blurring the line between what is real and what is imaginary. And here the confusion began. As Baudrillard explains, lost socialities and lost bodies. Because if video games are to replace reality, would we become unreal too and a part of the hyper-reality without an original for our own existence? Those questions might be looking too far to the future, but still, video games are a successful tool to be distracted from reality, especially in the time we are living in. And even though it works as a simulacrum according to Baudrillard's understanding, but we are still aware that it is a simulation, which means reality did not disappear, and the original is still there beside hyperreality. And video games could be the best substitute for physical world in my opinion, but I don't think that we actually need a substitute, at least not right now. Maybe in the future with more advances in technology, hyperreality could dominate and become the original, and the reality we know today would not exist anymore.